Today I will be talking about contour maps. As you can see in front of you, I've got a model of a mountain. Let's assume the mountain, each centimeter represents 100 meters. So if we place a ruler and see how high this mountain is, we can see that it's approximately 80 millimeters high, and that's, you can read that off the ruler right there. So that's 80 millimeters. So I'll just do that again. Okay, so let's assume that each 10 mils or 1 centimeter represents 100 meters. So this is an 800 meter tall mountain. Now the question is, how do we come up with a contour map from this model? And that's what I'll be talking about today. But before I do, I'd like you to pay attention to some of the features of this mountain. As you can see, this side of the mountain here is extremely steep. Now as I rotate this, you can see that the other side of the mountain is also steep. If I continue to rotate it, this side of the mountain is not so steep. It's got a bit of a hump here, and then it drops off quickly. And the other side is also relatively steep until it comes to the very bottom where it flattens out. So the question is, how do we come up with a contour map with regards to this three-dimensional model, and how does the steepness of the sides affect the contour map? Now we have to remember that a contour map is used to represent the shape of the terrain. So the terrain in this case, we said, is extremely steep until it comes down to the bottom where it flattens out. The terrain on this side is not so steep. The gradient here is not very steep, and it becomes a bit smaller here, and then all of a sudden we have this large gradient. So there's a bit of a drop off right here. So contour maps help explain the shape of this terrain, the steepness. Okay, so with this three-dimensional model, what I'm going to do next is actually cut layers. Cut it into 1 centimeter or 10 millimeter layers. And from that, I will generate the contour, the two-dimensional contour map. So first of all, I'm going to mark one of the sides with a texture. So when I align it up, it aligns up. When I construct a two-dimensional contour map, it's aligned correctly. Each layer will be aligned correctly. Okay, so I've put my mark on my mountain. So when I generate my two-dimensional contour map, I will place each layer such that it's perfectly aligned with the previous layer. Okay, here I'm showing you a bird's eye view of the mountain, and you can clearly see the marking I've got going straight down the side of the mountain in order to align it, in order to align each layer correctly. So now I'll be cutting each layer. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll try and cut 1 centimeter layers, approximately 1 centimeter, doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so that's the top layer done. Now I will carefully remove the top layer. Okay, so that's one of the layers successfully cut. Okay, so now I've just come back to the side view with a 10mm, 1 centimeter layer of the mountain cut, so the top of the mountain. So I will progressively work down the mountain. I'll end up with approximately 8 layers, so I'll proceed with that. Okay, so the second layer removed. Okay. I'll do the same with the third layer. Okay, that's the third layer removed. Okay. Fourth layer. Okay, that's fifth layer. Now I'm cutting this sixth layer. Now, the seventh layer. Okay, that's the seventh layer, and the eighth layer is the very bottom one. Now I've tried to cut these layers so that they're approximately the same thickness. Okay, here's a bird's eye view of each layer, each 1 centimeter layer that I cut. So we've got the smallest, you can see the base, the footprint of the very first layer is quite small. Footprint of the second layer is bigger, and so progressively as I went down cutting each layer from the mountain, you can see that the footprint or the cross-sectional area gets larger and larger and larger and larger, and eventually we have the bottom piece. So from this now we're going to construct our two-dimensional contour map. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the very bottom layer very carefully without disturbing it too much. Okay, so remove the very bottom layer. I'm going to place now a piece of paper, A4 piece of paper, like so, and then I'm going to carefully place each layer one at a time and trace around it. So first of all we'll start with the very top layer. Now it doesn't matter which layer we start with, but I've decided to start with the very top layer. Now without disturbing the layer too much, place it all the way down, and with my texter, or actually with a grey lead, I'm just going to mark a guideline. This is so I can align each layer according to this pencil marking. Okay. Next, I'm going to trace around carefully each layer.